Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear guests, I would like to welcome you to this special event organized by Kuwait University in College of Architecture, the Department of Architecture, in collaboration with the British Council and Dar al-Athar al-Islamiyya. My name is Mohammed Khalid al-Jassar. I am a faculty member at Kuwait University College of Architecture. Icaros, or Feilaca, is perhaps one of the most neglected archaeological sites in the Gulf region, despite its probability for being the most significant one. With more than 5 civilizations and thousands of years of continuous human settlements, Feilaca constitute a gem that yet needs to be rediscovered. In recent days, many of us heard in the news about new major projects being initiated in Kuwait, such as Silk City, the island's development, Mashari al-Jazr, most of which project a vision of prosperous cities with beautiful recreational areas, state-of-the-art business districts, and mega commercial malls, competing in its scale and glamour with that of Dubai and other Gulf cities. It is a vision mainly driven by the need to diversify the economy of Kuwait for future generations. And this is perhaps a very much needed process, is to look at what the future of Kuwait will be and what's the next generation. I think this is an important aspect. For Feilaca, however, Feilaca Island in particular, we have seen plans of how it might be developed in the future, increase waterfront use, inner island developments, and major commercial districts. And in some extreme cases, cutting the island with water canals to increase the real estate value, mainly targeting international investors and tourists. The spirit of these master plans, and this is the important part why we're here today, the spirit of these master plans, however, marginalize the cultural, historic, and archaeological significance of Feilaca Island. While developing Feilaca is extremely important, preserving its tangible and intangible heritage is enormously crucial to the success of any development in the future. And this is why we are gathered here today. We are pleased to have 5 scholars in our panel. Professor Robert Carter will discuss the archaeological landscape of Feilaca, followed by Dr. Hassan Ashkanani, who will give us an overview of the various archaeological missions and their interaction with the local community of Feilaca. Dr. Abdul Muttalib al-Ballam, on the other hand, will take us into a journey of the possibilities of using 3D reconstruction methods of the island's neighborhoods. From ICAMOS, Professor Michel Cotte will discuss the elements of heritage management and the future development of the island. Just wanted to mention that ICAMOS is an acronym for the International Council on Monuments and Sites, and it's actually the advisory council for the UNESCO, for World Heritage Sites. Last but not least, Mr. Andrew Erskine from Tom Fleming Creative Consultancy will give us an insight into how to promote heritage sites using creative economy models. Before we start, I would like to thank architect Hamid Bouhamsine. He was really instrumental. Without him, we couldn't have pulled this thing together all at the last minute. We started about a week ago, but he was quite instrumental in helping us. There were many others who have helped us as well. And I would like to also thank our media sponsors, AIAS, CASA, Nuqat, and Khalijisk. Our first speaker is Robert Carter from the University College of London in Qatar. Robert Carter is a professor of Arabian and Middle Eastern archaeology and graduate tutor. He coordinates the archaeology and the Arab of the Arab and Islamic world master's program and lectures on the archaeology of the region from the I've been trying to remember this word all day today, because it's one of these new words that I have to memorize. And I'm sure I'm going to butcher it. So Paleolithic, did I get it right? Paleolithic, all right. Paleolithic era to the coming of Islam. Professor Carter holds a PhD in Bronze Age East Eastern Arabia, and an MA from UCL Institute of Archaeology, London. Since 1993, he has conducted fieldworks, artifact studies, and consultancy in many of the Gulf region states such as Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, and Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, as well as Iran. So I would like to call on Professor Carter to take the platform. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the honor of speaking tonight. This is not my presentation, but I will endeavor to... Okay.
Let's go to the folder.
It's called presentation 2. It is on there.
Yeah.
There you go, yeah.
Well, this was changed. Here we go. This one?
Yep. Terrific.
Is that the one?
That's
perfect.
The right one, and we'll see if we can get it on the screen. There you go. So, yes, thank you very much for bringing me in to speak about the archaeology of Feilicka today. It's a great honor. It's a remarkably rich island, archaeologically speaking. I have approximately 4,000 years of archaeology and history to get through in 10 minutes. So that's 400 years a minute. For that reason, I'm not going to try and tell you everything. I'm just going to give you, if you like, some highlights of what appear to be, to me at least, the most important cultural periods or cultural horizons that are represented on the island, and a brief idea of why we consider them to be important. So it's quite a small island. It's only, 14 kilometers long or something, but there's a great number of sites. I'm going to go straight in by talking about the Bronze Age. I'm not going to give any further introduction, but around about 2000 BC, the island became extremely important as a node in the trade of the Dilmun civilization. The Dilmun civilization was a Bronze Age trading kingdom, in fact, we now know, based in Eastern Arabia. It came from Bahrain originally and Eastern Saudi Arabia and expanded its influence to Kuwait around about 2000 BC. And what we find is, as you might expect from a Bronze Age trading nation, is quite a lot of evidence for trading activities. Evidence for boats, evidence for imported goods. One of the reasons that Feilicka is important within this kind of network is because it is strategically located. It is in a place at the head of the Gulf where not only could you have a base where you could reprovision or where you could have some kind of governmental institutions, which we did see in Feilicka, but you could also control access in and out of Iraq, between Iraq and the Gulf. And as we shall see, that's quite important for the trading relationships at the time. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically, do I have a mouse? No. Has anyone got a laser pointer? Doesn't matter. Here down in the southwest of the island, we have the main cluster. Actually, some very large mounds, which I shall show you in more details. We have a settlement area, a complex of houses, basically, where people were living, and workshops. And we have a temple. This is one of the temples. This, in fact, is the slightly later and possibly less important of the temples on Feilicka. It's on a platform. It's quite characteristic of Dilmun temples. And there are some stones in the middle which could have been used for tying animals for sacrifice. Towards the northern part of that area of Feilicka, we actually have what we call a palace. We don't really know if it's a palace, but we think that certainly the governor would have had some kind of base there. It has a large columned hall, and it has a lot of rooms full of material, of trade goods, of jars. So what we have on the top left here is a shot cut through one of the storage rooms, absolutely full of pots. And these pots would have contained material that was intended to be traded. Or perhaps it had been brought into the island to be dispersed amongst the inhabitants. We have a great deal of evidence for government activity. We have a lot of seals, including some very large ones, which seem to relate to officialdom. So we believe that here we have officials, high officials in the Dilmun government living in this building. And right next door, there's quite a large temple, which is what you see top right. This is the shot of it after excavation. So we have a government building and a large temple. We think the temple was probably for the god Enki, the god Inzak, who was allied to or related to the Mesopotamian god Enki. Now, Inzak was a god of the waters under the ground, as well as a god of knowledge. And we have several temples around the Gulf, mainly associated with water. We don't actually have a sacred well that we have identified so far in Feiluka, but I expect that one exists. We just haven't found it yet. But around this temple, there are a lot of channels used for channeling water. It was a watery environment for a watery god. So we think that Inzak, in fact he was known as Inzak of Agaram on Feiluka, had his base, if you like, right next to the governor of the island. Now, I mentioned that this was a trading civilization, and it was passing huge volumes of trade from Iraq all the way through to India at the other end. The Gulf countries themselves had important roles to play in this. Dilmun was, if you like, a medium. It was a trading nation and a merchant nation. It didn't provide goods of its own, but it passed the goods from Oman and from India through to Iraq and indeed Iran, and vice versa. So there was a lot of grains, textiles, wood, and especially metal from Oman passing through the hands of the Dilmun merchants. And we actually have quite good evidence for their boats. So there are around about 8 or 9 seal impressions and seals from Feiluka, which show some of the boats that the merchants at Dilmun would have traveled on. And these are the boats you can see down on the right. In fact, this one, I believe, is upstairs on loan from the National Museum. I was taking a picture of a boat seal, a square boat seal, and I think it's the same one. We also have what I think are actually pieces of boats. So up here, from the palace mound, we have pieces of bitumen with impressions of planks and ropes. Now, they used a boat technology at that time where they covered their wooden planked boats with bitumen to waterproof them. The wood disappears, and what you get is the impression left in the bitumen. And these planks were not nailed together like Kuwaiti boats were of recent years. They were sewn together. These were sewn plank boats, very typical technology of the Western Indian Ocean and the Gulf. And we have a piece up there, and somebody has kindly, one of my colleagues, has kindly made a reconstruction of how the planks were sewn together, and we have an impression that shows one of those joins. And actually from another site on Feiluka, a little port site in the northwest corner, Al-Khadr, also produced one of these pieces with ropes going into a hole, which I believe are where the planks were stitched together. So it's quite nice to actually have these boat remains. A long time ago, I studied much earlier boat remains from Sabia in northern Kuwait, where they were putting the bitumen around bundles of reeds. And I kind of wish I was involved in these excavations, because then I could have studied the bitumen impressions on planked boats. It's just one of my hobbies. I won't go into it in too much detail. But this is really the network. So you see the material coming all the way from India and Pakistan, the so-called Harappan civilization, up the Gulf, through Oman, funneled through the north of the Gulf, and Feiluka was really in the place to control that. Now, we have to miss out the Iron Age. There isn't time. But occupation does continue. There may be a gap of a few hundred years. And then again, Feiluka becomes important in the Hellenistic period. So when the Greeks came and conquered the Iranian Empire, the Persian Empire, Alexander's successors set up a kingdom based in Iran and Iraq called the Seleucid Kingdom. And the first of them, Seleucus, who was one of Alexander's generals, set up a base in Feiluka. At least we believe it was set up around the time that he arrived. And it is a very Greek settlement, as I shall show you. And this is, in fact, in the same kind of place that you got the Bronze Age remains. Down in the southwest. And that was because it is apparently the best place to live. Now, they had at least 4 temples, the Greek population or the Greek-related population, and a large fortress. And on this map, the fortress is what is called F5 on the right-hand side. This is one of the temples, B6. There were 2 temples inside the fortress. And off this map, unfortunately, there was another sanctuary area called Tel Khazne. As well as that, there was the usual buildings and village-like occupation you would expect, but in this case, within the walls of the fortress. And this is what it looked like. It's really quite big and quite impressive. And I have to say, it's quite hard to appreciate on the ground just how impressive the archaeology is. This is one of the challenges we face as archaeologists, is how do you make a bunch of walls look like what they once were? And actually there's some very nice reconstructions upstairs showing how the temples and the fortress might have looked at this time. However, from an overhead shot, you can get a good idea of the fortress on the left. You can see the walls with the towers. In fact, it was in two phases. It was extended this way. You can see the two phases quite clearly up there, the original black phase and then a later grey one. And as well as this, we have a lot of very Greek material culture, including inscriptions in Greek, several of them. The two most famous ones actually mention a dedication by a chap called Soteles to Zeus, to Poseidon, and to Artemis. And another one talks about the moving of the temple of Artemis. One of the kings had asked it to be done. It wasn't done. Now they were going to do it, and they were going to hold games in a very Greek way to celebrate the moving of this temple. That's the lower one, the so-called Icaros inscription. Now, I always wonder if the temple that needed to be moved was this one, B6, because half of it is washed away by the sea, and you wonder if that actually happened a long time ago and was the reason for its moving. One of the other temples, though, and we don't know who this is dedicated to, is found inside the fortress, and it's quite well known. This is how it looked when it was, I wouldn't say reconstructed, but slightly rebuilt after the Danish excavations. In fact, when they dug it up, one of the columns was still standing up to this height. They found the other parts, they put it together. And above that, you have a hypothetical reconstruction. I think it actually probably quite a good one. I have to say, the statue of the chariot with the horses is invented. Yeah? But the rest of it, well, I'd give it a pass. And again, we don't really expect Phila to have been hugely important as a trading center at that time, but it was a military outpost that controlled the Gulf. You could send boats out either side of the island, patrolling every day, and nobody would be able to get by. You'd have to try and sneak by at night, which they didn't like doing. But here is a picture of the trading patterns at that time. So even if the people on Philika were not big traders, they would have been controlling this trade, which funneled the whole of the Western Indian Ocean into the Gulf. And it was one of the routes that you could get Indian trade through to Greek and Roman trade in the Mediterranean. You didn't have to go up the Red Sea. You could go up the Gulf and then up through, eventually roundabout through Aleppo, and then via Palmyra through to the Mediterranean in a northern route. We know this. It's historically attested. Philika would have been a point at that where that could have been stopped or permitted. Now, the third, if you like, a high point of the archaeology is actually an early Islamic period, but Christian site in the center of the island. Now, this has been discussed in the past as an interesting example of how Arabia was Christianized before the coming of Islam, but actually that is not the case. This site was at its peak during the Islamic period. For me, this tells a story of diversity and tolerance in the first 2 centuries of Islam. And this is just the center of it. In fact, there's hundreds of buildings, but the core, the most heavily built core, is here. And it includes 2 churches. There's quite a big church, which is the one in the big reconstruction on the left. And there's a plan of it above after a bit more excavation. And there's a small church very close to it, just 2 meters away. They think it's probably earlier, but actually it's hard to prove. And of course, within any church, you can only identify them really as churches. Well, one of the ways you can identify them is through the plasterwork and the crosses. In this case, there were 2 nice big plasterwork crosses. And again, one of them is upstairs. It's quite large, bigger than I expected, quite damaged, but there it is. And we think these belong to the so-called Church of the East, which people also call the Nestorian Church. And this persisted probably around about until the 9th century. So most of the material from this goes from the 7th century to the 9th century, and then actually Christianity in the whole region disappears after that. We're not exactly sure why. Now, finally, we will turn to the last 3 centuries. Philika actually has quite a rich archaeological record for the last 300 years. This is important because it relates actually to the people who live in Kuwait and Fīlka, or formerly lived in Fīlka today. This is a tangible link to the past. It's also an understudied period using archaeological techniques. Actually, very often historical sources are not good for the last 3 centuries. They mostly only focus on political history. So archaeology can tell us a lot about the lives of the people of Kuwait in the last few 100 years. In this case, a nice map from the 1820s originally, showing the location of 4 villages on Fīlka, only one of which was permanently occupied at the beginning of the 20th century, which is Zor. Also, interestingly, reading an account from 1908, Fīlka was a pilgrimage center. There were people coming from as far away as India and Afghanistan to the saints' tombs, most of which were clustered around Zor, but there were 2 very important ones on the archaeological sites in the southwest. And there was another important one at Al-Khidr in the north, but that was more for local sailors local to the Gulf. And I hadn't really realized this until I came here to study Fīlka for this visit, that it had been a pilgrimage island in the 19th century, and probably earlier as well. We're not really sure. You can think of it as a kind of holy island. And if you then also think of the 4 Hellenistic temples and the 2 Bronze Age ones, then you've actually got quite a story of religion. And finally, this is my last significant slide. There have been excavations of some of these 18th and 19th century sites. This is the site of Guraniya, a nice courtyard house. This is the Al-Khidr shrine, which has not been excavated. It was actually destroyed long before archaeologists got near it. But then we also have the ruins of Zor itself, the traditional architecture there. And here again you have a tangible link with living heritage, with people who actually lived in these houses or know who lived in them and can remember that way of life, which of course includes work on the fisheries. And so in this way you can link the lived experience of life on Fīlka and in Kuwait with the past through archaeology and ethnographic techniques combined. That's all I'll say, because I don't really have time. I'm going to eat into the other speakers' time, which would be terribly rude. In fact, I think I already have. I do apologize. What I'll do is I'll thank you very much, and we're open for questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Carter, for this introduction into Fīlka's history. Our second speaker is Dr. Hassan Ashkenani. Dr. Ashkenani is an assistant professor of anthropology and archaeology of the ancient Arabian Gulf at Kuwait University since 2014. He holds a master's degree from Wayne State University in Michigan from 2009 and a PhD specializing in the Gulf of the Delmonite or the Delman culture 4,000 years ago from the University of South Florida. He contributed to the establishment of the first museum and library of archaeology and anthropology at Kuwait University and has been its supervisor since 2016. He was awarded the Best Research in Linguistic Anthropology in 2008 from Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Science in cooperation with the Union of Kuwaiti Students in the United States. I would like to call on Dr. Ashkenani to.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Muhammad and Mr. Jabir, for inviting me in this lecture about Fīlka Island. My lecture will be in Arabic of how we can look at Fīlka Island beyond the archaeological excavation and discoveries, how the story of the first discovery of archaeological sites in Kuwait has inspired Kuwaitis to create their identity and to be involved in what we call the science of archaeology. البحث هذا راح نقدم فيه لأول مرة في طريقة جدا مختلفة كلش. أنا يمكن صار لي يعني آخر 10 سنوات أتكلم عن جزيرة فيلكا من خلال التنقيبات الأثرية. و I think يعني I believe إن الدكتور كارتر did very well إنه he covered all the highlights sites on فيلكا Island. ولذلك أنا اليوم راح أقدم شيء جدا جديد بأرشيف جديد بطريقة بحث جديدة من خلال دراسة فيلكا، وهي دراسة كيفية تأثير المواقع الأثرية وقصة اختراع واكتشاف وتأسيس أول متحف في تاريخ الكويت ليحقق هوية تاريخية وهوية وطنية للمواطنين الكويتيين من سنة 1957، وبالأخص للمواطنين من جزيرة فيلكا اللي أنا رحب فيهم اليوم موجودين هم ويانا كبار السن. وهذا الاهتمام أصلا بدأ من سنة 1957 لما دعا الشيخ عبد الله سالم حاكم الكويت البعثة الدنماركية من جامعة أرهوس موشغارد اللي كانت أوريدي قاعد تحفر في منطقة البحرين سنة 1954 وكشفت عن بقايا الحضارة الدلمونية في موقع باربار في موقع القلعة. ففي سنة 1957 وإحنا قبل شهرين مع المجلس الوطني للثقافة والفنون والآداب احتفلنا بمرور 60 عام على وصول هذه البعثة وعلى تأسيس متحف الكويت الوطني اللي كان في 31 ديسمبر 1957. ففي هذه الأثناء كانت هناك نوع من الوعي العام لدى أهالي الكويت لدى الحكومة الكويتية بحضور الشيخ ورعاية الشيخ عبد الله السالم بلقاء مع جيفري بيبي ومستر جلوب على أساس ينتقلون من التنقيبات الأثرية من منطقة البحرين ويبدون في منطقة فيلكا. يت أيضا الرعاية الضخمة والرعاية الكريمة أيضا بدور المجلس المعارف متمثلة بالشيخ عبد الله الجابر رحمة الله عليه اللي كان آنذاك يعني رئيس مجلس المعارف بمثابة اليوم وزير التربية، هي كانت الجهة المسؤولة التي ترتبط في عملية التنقيبات الأثرية وكل الحركات الثقافية. حتى بدأت أول بعثة تنقيب في فبراير، واليوم إحنا هالأيام أمس قاعد نعيش مرور ذكرى 60 عام على أول archaeological trench started in the Kuwait history. أول حفرة تنقيب آثار في تاريخ الكويت إحنا عشناها الحين هالأيام قبل 60 سنة في مثل هذه الأيام من تاريخ 18 أو 13 فبراير 1958 على أساس أنا أكون قادر أني أدرس كيف هذه الآثار وكيف هذه الأخبار أثرت على هوية المواطن الكويتي، أثرت على الايدنتيتي، شلون صار في انسبريشن عند الناس أن to be work as an archaeologist or conservative. رحنا شفنا أن عندنا في جدا مصادر جدا قليلة تتكلم عن دور الأهالي بالتعاون مع البعثات الأثرية، شلون الآثار أثرت على رغبة الشباب الكويتيين في الخمسينات. لذلك كانت رحلة شاقة مدة 6 سنوات. أنا وأصدقائي قعدنا شباب عندنا فريق عمل جمعنا كل ما هو متعلق في جزيرة فيلكا وطلعنا تقريبا في 3778 مادة أرشيفية ما بين صور أصلية ووثائق مجلات وإصدارات تتكلم عن مواد أرشيفية صحف وإعلانات من متاحف موشغارد أرهوس من المجلس الوطني للثقافة والفنون والآداب من محلات الأنتيكس في نيويورك وفي لندن. فقعدنا طلعنا هالمواد هذه كلها وعلى أساس أن قاعد نشوف إحنا كيف ندرس تأثير أو أهمية جزيرة فيلكا عند الأهالي. لما نتكلم عن جزيرة فيلكا وتاريخها ووثائقها وأرشيفها لازم نتكلم عن المكان لحفظ هذه التاريخ، المكان لحفظ هذه المعلومات، وهو كان مقر أول متحف في تاريخ دولة الكويت في تاريخ الخليج العربي، وهو متحف الكويت الوطني في مقره في دسمان. كان في السابق عبارة عن منزل الشيخ خزعل بن مرداو حاكم المحمرة صديق الشيخ مبارك الكبير الذي أهداه هذه الأرض سنة 1906 وانتهى من البناء سنة 1915 والبعض يقول 1916. في هذا المبنى انتقل إلى ملكية الشيخ عبد الله الجابر صباح سنة 1937 تقريبا استمر فيه لمدة 20 سنة. في سنة 1957 أهدى أو أجر هذا المبنى على دائرة المعارف حتى يكون مقر أول متحف للكويت. وهذه الصور طبعا كلها أصلية. يعني هم صعوبة أن حصلنا 24 صورة، طبعا ما راح أطول فيهم لأن تقريبا 24 صورة شلون بدت رحلة الافتتاح، وصول الشيخ عبد الله الجابر، قص شريط الافتتاح، المرور في مخازن، صالات العرض داخل متحف الكويت الوطني، ثم حفلة الشاي. ولكن هذه بعض الصور. هني هذه الصورة بالنسبة لي أنا قاعد أشوف في أشياء ثانية، قاعد أشوف أن في ناس غير كويتيين موجودين مو محليين موجودين في حدث مثل افتتاح متحف الكويت الوطني. هذا بالنسبة لي هذه المهمة الجديدة، أن شلون بعد هذا الحدث سنة 57 راح نشوف في change في local people involved in Kuwait اركيولوجي، نفس المكان اللي واقف الشيخ عبد الله اليابر، انا بنفس المكان ايضا واقف فيه قبل كم شهر، وهي خلال زياره ميدانيه لمعرفه التصور حق البيت. داخل هذا الارشيف الخاص في متحف الكويت، واللي يعتبر المقر الاول من ضمن 3 مقرات انتقل فيها، ثم اللي كان في السبعينات في بيت البدر، ثم انتقل الى المقر الحالي سنه 1983. حصلنا على مواد جدا مهمه، حصلنا على مواد ارشيفيه تعطينا صوره عن طريقه عرض جزيره فيلكا كباك جراوند تاريخي، كخلفيه تاريخيه اساسيه او لصناعه هويه الوطنيه التي تعود إلى أكثر من 300 سنة، لأن فيها الفترة كان فترة التثمينات سنة 51 52. الناس طالعة من حياة بسيطة متواضعة إلى حياة فيها الثروة وفيها النهضة. فالشاب الكويتي أو الأسرة الكويتية بال55 57 هي خلاص بتنسى الماضي مال قبل 7-8 سنوات مال الأربعينات. بس تخيلوا شو اللي صار، إن خلال 57 تم افتتاح أول متحف، 58 صار عندنا تنقيب أثري، 58 الأهالي قاموا يدخلون. فأنت تحتاج 30-40 سنة عشان أقول هذا ماضي، ولكن ما أحتاج 6-7 سنوات عشان أقول هذا ماضي وهذا تراث. ففيلكا كانت هي العنوان الأوضح أن نخلق هوية كويتية تمتد أكثر من 300 سنة حق أهالي الفيلكا، خاصة حق أهالي الكويت. هاي طبعا صورة اللي على اليسار وايد مهمة بالنسبة لي، لأن مادة أرشيفية وايد مهمة، عليها كلمة معارف الكويت، وهذا من تعتبر من قطع نادر داخلها النيجاتيف وفيها الصورة الأصلية، وهذه كانت توزع على جميع الصحف العالمية والعربية بالخمسينات. أيضا رحنا شفنا شلون تو ريبريزنت كويت هيستوري ثرو البوست كاردز، فقعدنا تقريبا لمدة 2 سنين جمعنا أكثر من 12 بوست كارد أصلي، وشفنا أن في إصدارات مختلفة، دائرة المعارف، وزارة الإنباء والإرشاد، وزارة الإعلام. ولكن هذه البوست كاردات جدا مهمة، لأن من سنة 58 إلى 1963 اللي هو فترة تنقيب البعثة الدنماركية ما في ولا تقرير صدر، فما تم الاكتشاف عنه ما نعرفه هو شنو كان أصلا. ليش؟ لأن أول كتاب حق البعثة الدنماركية طلع بعد 20 سنة من انتهاء التنقيب سنة 63، يعني طلع تقريبا بين 88-86 الكتب المشهورة. فظلت البوست كاردات هي أفضل مصدر للتعريف عن هوية تاريخ الكويت القديم، لأنها كانت عبارة عن إصدارات سنوية، كل سنة يصدر فيها صور مختلفة ومتنوعة حق أهم الاكتشافات، مثل الختم الدلموني، أو مثلا عندنا بالصورة تمثال حق الآلهة أو الملوك السليوقيين مثلا، أو الهلينستيين اللي كانوا في جزيرة فيلكا. الدكتور مثلا روبرت عرض الصورة هذه من F6، كانت من أولى الصور حق بداية العثور على أقدم فخاريات في تاريخ الكويت، فخاريات حضارة باربار اللي عمرها تقريبا 4000 أو 3950 سنة. وكذلك الأختام الدلموني اللي الكويتيين أصلا ما شافوها لمدة 20 سنة لولا هالبوست كاردات. هذه القطعة جدا بالنسبة لنا مهمة، من أندر القطع، هي عبارة عن أول تقرير، أو خلينا نقول مو أول، أقدم تقرير عن مشاركة الحكومة الكويتية، الكويتيين المهتمين في تاريخ فيلكا، ويتقدمون في مؤتمر برزنتيشن أو بيبر عن آثار فيلكا. هذا أقدم دليل اليوم احنا عندنا اياه. هذا الدفتر من القطع النادرة اللي فعلا تصور لنا بداية شعور المواطن الكويتي في الانضمام إلى ما يسمى في علم الآثار وإبراز الهوية. القطعة هي جدا نادرة، عبارة عن أيضا سجل حق زوار المتحف والزوار اللي راح يروحون جزيرة فيلكا سنة 59 سنة 60. فيها أسماء جدا جميلة، ضيوف الحكومة، ضيوف الشيخ عبد الله السالم، ضيوف الشيخ عبد الله الجابر، أعداد الطلبة، المدارس، الديليجيشنز والجهات اللي try to visit فيلكا island in 1959. قصة طارق رجب هي تقريبا تكون الثمرة الأكبر في محور حديثنا اليوم، ولكن أيضا لضيق الوقت ما راح أتكلم عنه وايد، لأنه يعتبر أول كويتي انضم في مجال علم الآثار. هو طبعا درس في مدرسة إيستبورن في لندن سنة 1953، تخرج سنة 1959 في الفن الحديث. 59 لما رجع إلى الكويت الشيخ عبد الله الجابر رحمة الله عليه عينه أول مدير لمتحف الكويت الوطني في المقر الأول في دسمان. وظل طارق رجب متولع في كل ما هو متعلق بالآثار بسبب اكتشاف جزيرة فيلكا وآثارها اللي تعد كان لمدة 4000 سنة، والموقع الثاني اللي هو القلعة الهنستية كان عمرها 2300 سنة. وظل طارق، هذه صورة حقه لما رجع وبدأ هني ينضم مع التنقيبات الأثرية رحمة الله عليه. فكان عندي وايد أحاديث وياه، أكثر من 8 ساعات تسجيل صوتي، شلون هو اهتم، شنو الانسبريشن كان بالنسبة لنا تو بي as the first archaeologist في الكويت. هني من كثر ما هو اهتم، الحكومة الكويتية طلبت إرسال طارق رجب مرة ثانية إلى أرهوس دنمارك مقر البعثة الدنماركية لمدة 4 إلى 6 شهور لدراسة مستفيضة عن معنى الآثار، الراديو كاربون ديتنج، الكاتيجوري، شلون نسوي الصور، كل الطرق المنهجية في علم الآثار. يبون يتعلم بطريقة علمية جدا ويكون عنده اطلاع على اللغة السومرية واطلاع على اللغة الهلينستية. وهذه طبعا المراسلات اللي نشروها المجلس الوطني مشكورين، أعطتنا صورة وايد أوضح على دور الشباب الكويتيين آنذاك في سنة 59. وأنا أيضا كان عندي يعني حسب نصيحة السيد طارق رجب رحمة الله عليه أيضا رحت زرت أرهوس لمدة 3 أشهر وقعدت ودرست في نفس المكان اللي هو درس فيه سنة 59، والفخاريات اللي كانت محل دراسة فخاريات من الكويت طبعا هذه اللي كانت هي